think that this segues really well into our next topic, which is the impeachment of Donald Trump. Because a lot of people are against the wall simply because they're against anything that Trump wants to do. And this is exemplified no better than the media, who have been trying to impeach him since before he was elected for things that for crimes that are not crimes and are not impeachable offenses because they are not crimes.
And just to be clear, if they were crimes, then you would get arrested for them.
Yeah, and
you know,
many I've seen some articles arguing that Trump should be impeached for offhand remarks that he's made, which is that you can't impeach a president for that. You actually have to have evidence that they committed a criminal act that is a high crime or a misdemeanor, treason, fraud, etc. You have to have evidence that they've committed these. Yeah.
So right here we have the requirements, or typically like the stages taken before impeachment is something that's followed through with. So first off, a member of the House of Representatives brings a resolution of impeachment, or in some form or another, an inquiry. Now, the Judiciary Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, would need to produce a majority vote to be able to advance that resolution to the full House. Then the House would need to have a vote and would have to get a majority vote to continue with the impeachment resolution. Then the Senate would need to act as the jury, judging the president and the impeachment resolution, and with a 2/3 majority vote would have to vote to convict.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all of that said here, I want to point one thing out specifically, is that we have a Republican Senate. We have a Republican majority in the Senate.
Yes.
So assuming that all the first three steps here that we'd mentioned are completed, there's still no guarantee whatsoever that impeachment is something that is continued with and that Trump will be removed from office.
It's unlikely that he will be.
It is highly unlikely.
But I would also like to mention that this week, and the reason that we're talking about impeachment, this week, the Democrats have voted to formalize their impeachment inquiry, which is not the beginning of an impeachment process. It is not a resolution of impeachment. If they had voted on a resolution of impeachment, this would then go to the Senate. Rather, what they are doing, or rather what they have done, is that they have voted to formally continue the investigation that they have been enacting informally previously. And there have been there has been a lot of controversy surrounding closed-door investigations that the Democrats have been conducting. Now, there have been Republicans present for these closed-door meetings, but according to reports, they have largely been unable, or rather blocked, by Democrats from cross-examining witnesses that they have had in these meetings. And they've also not allowed the president's legal counsel to be present for these proceedings, which they should be present because these accusations are against the president. Even if he's not there himself, he should have a representative, someone who's representing him legally there.
He does. I mean, of course, this isn't a fully fledged court case yet, but if it was, he would have the right to an attorney. Yeah. He would have the right to counsel. So, yes. If this is something, if we're trying to set the standard, if Democrats are trying to set the standard that this should be a criminal investigation, then I think they should be upholding that same standard by providing evidence. Yeah.
Now though this was. They are going to have to start doing that now that they have formally voted for an inquiry. But it is a little bit ironic that they only decided to do this once enough commotion was made about the fact that they were doing it privately. Like, they're going to do it publicly now, which I think is a good thing. Right. But they should have been doing that from the start.
And so the politics of this kind of gets intertwined here as well, because I believe there was only maybe 2 or 3 Democrats that voted not to continue with the formalization of this inquiry, right? But so this was largely voted down partisan lines. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train there a little bit. I wanted to point out some of the the constitutional process, clarification, whatever you want to call it, for impeachment specifically, because there is a little bit of gray area to this as well that the Senate will be involved with.
Right.
So Article 1, Section 2 states, the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment. Article 1, Section 3 states, the Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. So the Senate would have to, like we said, a Republican Senate would have to try Trump and convict him on the grounds of impeachment. But additionally, and as we have here, Article 2, Section 4 states, the president shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, there is pretty clear gray area there.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the question of what constitutes
a high crime, what constitutes a misdemeanor.
Exactly.
And then of course
this has been debated for over 100 years.
Especially even regarding treason.
Yes.
I mean, there have been accusations of treason towards Trump since 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, if you go online right now, just do a simple Google search, impeachment 2016, you'll find articles entertaining the idea of impeachment of Donald Trump before he was even president. So I don't think it's unfair for the average person to say that they have some skepticism regarding the claims of impeachment. We've been hearing this in the U.S. now for three and a half years.
It's the boy who cried wolf. They've been attacking Trump too aggressively, and it makes their attacks on him now uncredible.
Doth protest too much.
Yeah, exactly. But
and look, we're all for due process.
Yeah.
I mean, if the man is guilty of anything there that constitutes that he should be impeached, impeach him. You know, I'm all for upholding the systems that we voted by.
Yeah.
But there is a serious concern that if this president is wrongfully impeached in some way, shape, or form, that the public unrest from that could spiral, to say the least.
It would also set a dangerous precedent for the future in which the legislature would be able to remove a president for any reason if he's wrongfully impeached.
What it'll do to our culture, what it'll do to our sense of safety and security.
Yeah. What it will do to people's faith in the legal system, because the faith in the legal system is really important to upholding a society. If people do not have faith that the laws are going to be followed and upheld, then they have no reason to obey them. Especially, and there is a lot of corruption in our legal system. People are already losing faith in our legal system. Any further decay of it is only going to result in chaos. And that's something that I don't think anybody wants, which is why we need to make sure that our politicians are upholding the law even when they don't like it. Even, if Trump,
especially
if Trump is not guilty, they should not, if they find him not guilty, they should not continue pursuing him. And unfortunately, as we have seen, they've been pursuing him relentlessly from one issue to the next. First it was Russia, then it was racism, then it was Ukraine. I mean, now it's Ukraine. And actually, I think we should talk about how this whole impeachment process even started with Trump's conversation with the Ukrainian president.
Sure.
Because essentially what happened was Trump had a call with the Ukrainian president in which he remarked somewhat offhandedly that he would like to see an investigation into Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election.
Correct me if I'm wrong. These transcripts were released.
Yes, although they aren't transcripts per se, rather they are a written recollection of what was said by the people there. There isn't an official transcript because nobody was writing down what they were saying as they were saying it.
Okay.
So it is technically not a transcript, but it is the closest thing to a record we're going to get outside of a straight up recording of the call coming out.
Which I can only imagine the level of president we'd have to be if we were pulling calls from world leaders to verify what they said, because we didn't trust them. I mean, that would be a dangerous circumstance in itself.
Well, if we were to do that, it would also it would make it difficult for any world leader to trust that their conversations with the President of the United States would be kept in confidentiality, which would greatly reduce the likelihood that foreign leaders would share information with the President.
greatly reduces our negotiating power.
Yes.
Which Trump has been able to exercise pretty well from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Now, two other things I want to touch on regarding the impeachment inquiry. So there's been talk of a whistleblower. We've recently information's been released showing essentially the whistleblower for this person who claimed that the conversation between Trump and the leader there with Ukraine specifically was to target Joe Biden, and because he's a presidential candidate, that there would be, conflict of interest there.
Well, that is one of the elements of why they've used this as a justification for impeachment. But the other side of it is that they are arguing that Trump had withheld aid from Ukraine as a incentive for Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden, and their argument is that Joe Biden is a political rival of his. Withholding aid from a foreign country to investigate him is corruption. Now, the problem with this argument is that we withhold aid from countries all of the time as a negotiation tactic to get them to do what we want them to do. And so what they have to prove, it's not enough for them to prove that Trump withheld aid from Ukraine, because the evidence is pretty clear that he did. They have to be able to prove why he did it. And as Trump's justification for this is that he was doing it so that they would investigate interference in the 2016 election, not even necessarily Joe Biden. It just happened. Like, his argument is that Joe Biden just happens to have connections with Ukraine, given number one, his son's involvement with Ukrainian businesses, and number two, the fact that he was the point man on dealing with Ukrainian corruption when he was vice president. And in a lot of ways, what people are accusing Trump of doing here is the exact same thing that Joe Biden has been accused of. Not the exact same thing, but similar, because he said that, actually it is the exact same thing. It's not even similar. He said that Ukraine would not get their money if they did not fire a certain prosecutor who was investigating Joe Biden's son for corruption. He demanded that it be done that day. It's not even like he had a call with them and said, hey, stop, fire this prosecutor, and think about it. He said, I'm going to leave Ukraine in 6 hours. I want this done in 6 hours, or you're not getting the money. That's what he said. That's a lot more aggressive than what Trump said.
Just to add to this, Joe Biden also claimed that at no point throughout his presidency did he discuss any of his foreign policies or proceedings with his son, and also claimed that nothing regarding Ukrainian business or any just this, like you had mentioned, inquiry regarding corruption and Joe Biden's immediate tasks in Ukraine. Those were the only things that he had any involvement with, that his son had absolutely nothing to do with it, while at the same time being on video, or I think on camera with him, his son, and 3 CEOs in Ukrainian businesses. So I don't want to make a clear accusation there. I don't want to.
Yeah, we can't prove anything, but I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have discussed anything having to do with Ukraine with his son, even once. But
it's also odd that his son is an executive in a Ukrainian business. But but that's something that can be dissected later.
Having said all of that, Joe Biden's defense of these accusations is that he was sent to Ukraine to root out corruption, and part of his rooting out corruption was trying to get this prosecutor fired. Now, whether or not you think that that is true or not is sort of irrelevant, because that defense is the exact same defense that Trump is using here. He is saying that he has asked Ukraine to investigate corruption and interference in our elections. Joe Biden is ancillary to that. Now, in fact, I'm fairly certain that from the transcripts that have been released, that Trump didn't even bring up Joe Biden. I'm pretty sure that the Ukrainian president himself brought it up. And
I did hear that as well.
Yeah. So there is no.
We can fact check
there
that,
is
of course. We encourage the viewers do as well.
Yeah, but there is no evidence, or maybe I could be wrong, but from what I recall, there is no evidence that Trump was going after Biden directly. Now, this is in stark contrast to Biden's situation, right? Maybe you think that prosecutor was corrupt. Maybe Joe Biden was justified in doing it, but he was very aggressive in his desire to see this one prosecutor fired. And this is one prosecutor, right? Like, I could understand wanting certain changes and withholding money, but it seems to me like a disproportionate response to demand a prosecutor be fired within 6 hours, and to threaten the withholding of billions of dollars, or millions or billions of dollars, if that's not done. That to me is far more egregious than anything Trump has been accused of.
Now, that having been said, I don't think this is an accusation for or against Trump or Biden, right? But there are some clear parallels. Like, regardless of where you stand on who's right and who's wrong, what you believe, there are some clear parallels there that you have to keep into account. Because let's say you believe that Joe Biden went there for all the right reasons and did all the right things, but if you can acknowledge that the circumstances surrounding his situation and comparing that to the circumstances surrounding Trump, there are there's some clear similarities there that I think have to be taken into account. And upon reviewing those similarities, I think you have to treat them with similar standards. What dictates guilt, what evidence is required. I don't think that those pieces of information have been collected from Trump to be able to provide
I should point out that there isn't
claim of
enough evidence to convict either one of these accusations. You can say that it looks bad for them. I would say that it doesn't look. I would say that it looks worse for Biden. But even having that been said, there's still not a lot of evidence to show that he wasn't engaged in his duty of trying to root out corruption, in the same way that there isn't a lot of evidence to suggest that Trump wasn't specifically targeting Biden, rather that he was trying to investigate Ukrainian interference in our elections. And I find it somewhat ironic that he is being attacked for trying to do that, given how much of a fuss has been made about Russian interference in our elections.